What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Fight Franchise and our preview and prediction for the main event of UFC Mexico, where Brandon Moreno takes on Steve Erceg in what is going to be quite a fun matchup if it lives up to the hype and both guys come out there and perform. Both guys are ahead of the top of the flyweight division, which is being ruled with an iron fist by one of the best fighters in the world right now, Alexandre Pantoja. He just mixes us up so well against these flyweights, and he's been outdoing them for the past few years now. But Steve Erceg and Brandon Moreno are taking on each other to try and earn and figure out who is next in line for a title shot, or try and get into a position where they can earn a title shot. Gonna kind of give you my preview and prediction going into the fight, breakdown and rundown of both guys' career and how I think it's going to go technically. So let's just go straight into the tail of the tape. Brandon Moreno, 22 wins, 8 losses, 2 draws. Steve Erceg, 12 wins, 3 losses. 5'7", Brandon Moreno. 5'8", Steve Erceg. One thing I thought going into this, I will mention, I thought Steve Erceg would be quite taller than Brandon Moreno. I didn't realise Brandon Moreno, the height was that close. I thought Steve Erceg would have been significantly taller. It may just be like how Brandon Moreno's stance is. He just seems smaller. Surprisingly, 70-inch reach for Brandon Moreno, 68-inch reach for Steve Erceg, and identical in leg reach, 38-38. So, yeah, live odds. There's no live odds shown on the UFC website on the ranking, so I'm not sure how it is and who's the favourite going into it. But a very interesting matchup atop the flyweight division. So we'll start off with Brandon Moreno, the former champion. You know, Moreno has been one of the most... In his title run, was one of the most exciting fighters in the world. He put on some legendary and fun fights. He kind of gets into the UFC and has some struggles, you know, during the early days, and he gets cut from the UFC and then makes his way back to the UFC, where he has kind of some weird run where he, you know, has a draw with Askar Askarov, beats Kai Kara-France by decision, beats Formiga, and then beats Brandon Royval by finish. Off the back of that, has a legendary fight in the Apex during the height of the pandemic, where him and Davison Figueiredo fought to a draw in what was a competitive and fun fight, where Figueiredo was deducted a point, which ended it being a draw. They rematch for the world title, and Moreno wins the world title, submits Figgy with a rear naked choke, I believe it was, and in what was an epic and fun fight. They rematch again in their trilogy, UFC 270, where Figueiredo gets the decision, which was a very close and competitive bout, which you could have argued for Moreno, and then off the back of that wins the interim title against Kai Kara-France with a brilliant finish. He landed a huge body kick. I think it was a liver shot to Kai Kara-France's body, who crumples over and then lands the ground and pound to finish Kai Kara-France, and then beats Davison Figueiredo in what was another epic fight and a war in Brazil at UFC 283. And he gets the doctor's stoppage because he batters Figueiredo's eye and he can't open his eye. Off the back of that, you know, he's kind of wins, losses, draws in this whole run, and he's been through some epic wars, and then he has one of the fights of the year versus Alexandre Pantoja in what was an epic fight at UFC 290, where they went back and forth, and Alexandre Pantoja won the fight and won the decision, where he had the better performance throughout the fight. And then he fights Brandon Royval in what was kind of a... Where was Moreno performance? It just didn't seem like the right Moreno was there, and he just goes, okay, he loses that fight, and we don't kind of hear from him for quite some time. He just takes his foot off the gas and goes, I need a break from MMA, which was the right thing to do. When you look at that run from, 2019 to 2004, so 2019 to 2004, he was so active, it was unbelievable. Like, he was taking fights left, right, and centre every couple of months. Maybe the biggest gap in his fights was 7-8 months, but he just was always in camp. And then he goes, okay, I need a break. So he takes a break, and then he comes back in November of 2024 and he fights Amir Albazi. And this was a different Brandon Moreno. This was measured Moreno. Before this, Moreno had a crazy, fun Mexican fighting style where he'd just come out. Balls, as we all know, the Mexicans are some of the most exciting fighters in combat sports. Pressure, put forward and go to war. He just goes, okay, let me just I'm measured, Moreno. I'm going to be measured with my striking. I'm going to be measured with my pressure. I'm going to be measured. And he just picks apart Amir Albazi slowly, who was coming off an injury as well, and he was a bit slower, but he just picks him apart, causes the damage, and never gets ahead of himself, and wins a very good decision and a very good performance in that fight. And then kind of now he's got himself back into a swing of momentum. Steve Erceg, on the other hand, his career is as such. joins the UFC and goes on a 3-fight win streak, and beating David Dvorak, Alessandro Costa, and Matt Schnell via KO. After the Matt Schnell KO, it was supposed to be him or Muhammad Mokaev getting the title shot. I think there was an issue with Mokaev's way. He won, I can't remember who he beat, but he won in a very lackluster way on the same card. So they go, okay, we'll give it to you, Steve Erceg, where he fought Pantoja in a competitive fight. They went to war with each other, but Pantoja, I think, won that fight. But it was a very good fight in the fight of the night, I think, that night. But they went to war with each other, and off the back of that, he fights Kai Kara-France and gets brutally finished in the first round. Steve Erceg done. So he's on a bit of a downward spiral of momentum, but I'm pretty sure he's still young in his career. Yeah, he's 29, whereas Brandon Moreno is, let me just double check. Brandon Moreno is 31, so a 2-year age gap, but both are kind of still young in their careers in MMA. How do I think this fight is going to go? I think, surprisingly, it can be a war, but it wouldn't surprise me if it actually is a kind of very mirror technical kind of measured matchup, you know, like Steve Erceg, when he fought Kai Kara-France, he was very he was pressuring, but he was never really engaging. It was like Kai Kara-France fainting. And the one thing Kai Kara-France done really well, he just level changed with his striking, and then he just came upstairs with that huge shot which dropped him. And I think Brandon Moreno can have success doing the same. And if Brandon Moreno, he's got very good leg kicks. He likes to chop the legs very fast. I feel like if he chops the legs as well, he can cause damage to Steve Erceg early on, and he can kind of slow down that pressure that Erceg's going to put on it. I think it's a very interesting fight because Erceg, he likes to fight at range and then come in close with that tight boxing and that crisp boxing. But Brandon Moreno's just got a big old blockhead. He ain't going to get finished that easily. So I don't think either fight, if someone's going to get a finish, I think it's more likely to be Brandon Moreno. But I don't even think he'll get finished. I think it will be a decision win for Brandon Moreno. I just think he'll have the more calculated kind of striking in there. He'll mix his game up very well. Whereas Steve Erceg, he'll be tentative because of he's coming off the back of 2 losses. He'll be more measured in his approach and just too measured. Whereas Brandon Moreno, off the back of that, can just chew you up. If you're not being active with Brandon Moreno, you know, he will have his way with you. Like, let me just see if we can get the numbers for the Albazi fight that he had. Because that fight where he kind of pieced up Albazi very bad. I remember Albazi was going for takedowns and he was struggling. I'm just trying to see if I can get this fight card. Moreno vs Albazi. Yeah, look at this strike numbers. 132 to 63. 132 is very low for a Brandon Moreno fight. He's normally throwing away more strikes than that, but he was very measured in this fight. And he just dominated Albazi in the striking. And I feel like he's going to do the same with a tentative Steve Erceg, where Steve's just going to be at range, just going to try and find his distance and try and perfect his shots, but I just don't think they're going to work against someone like Moreno, where Moreno can mix it up. He can come with a striking, he can come with the leg kicks low, chop the leg kicks low, level change and rip to the body, and he can rip upstairs as well. Whereas Steve Erceg, at that weight class and being so slender and tall, he's a huge target to hit for these guys, especially because this division is very fast. They jump in and they jump out. They dart in and they dart out with striking. So I feel like that's something which Brandon Moreno does key. He blitzes in like crazy. Like when you watch that Alexandra Pantoja fight, they just came in and clashed out. It was one of my favourite fights of that year. It was such an entertaining fight. And I just think Steve Erceg is going to be more susceptible to being finished in that aspect and kind of getting caught, and he's more of a vulnerable target. There's more to aim for, whereas Brandon Moreno, he crouches down, he shells it more, and he'll fight that kind of good fight. And I feel like he's learnt his game, he's perfected, he's knowledgeable, and he's just, made those key adjustments where he's just better. So I think Brandon Moreno will win a key decision versus Steve Erceg. I think Steve Erceg may have moments of success in like rounds 3 and 4 later in the fight, where Brandon will probably take the early round, Steve may take the 3rd round, and Brandon will rally back and win the 4th and the 5th, and he'll win a decision where he'll kind of, no one will know who he has to fight next because Alexandre Pantoja's beat the rest of the division. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think Brandon wins? Do you think Steve Erceg wins? Put that down in the comments below. Leave a like if you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more MMA and fight content coming soon. We hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you in the next one.